What you're about to watch is an interview between myself and Juna from Detour Shirts YouTube channel, where I share 3 key elements of a single listing that did $45,000 in under 6 months in a student store of mine. If you would like help like this, you can book a free consultation in the description below. Otherwise, enjoy the interview.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Dave. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How are you doing? Thank you.
Great. You have tons of experience. You have 6 years of coaching, helping Etsy sellers, and I wanted to have you on my channel and share with you your knowledge with all of us here. You also have, I put in the title, a case study of someone doing about 45K in 6 months. We're going to get into that in this one as well. But before we do that, can we get a little bit of background on where you are now, how you got to where you are now, and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I feel like a lot of our subscribers and our audience is a good crossover, because you talk a lot about print on demand, and a lot of print on demand sellers are on Etsy. So I love the collaboration and I really appreciate it. So my name is Dave, otherwise known as Add to Cart on YouTube. I started doing art shows and music festivals every single weekend with my girlfriend, now wife. For years and years like that, we were hand making jewelry, grinding, and having to work all week to only sell on the weekends, which got really old really quickly. And I know a lot of people can resonate with that because I've coached and talked to a lot of people that were on that same trail. We even did like the van life thing, and we had an RV and went across the country doing music festivals and stuff. But it quickly burns you out. And that's when we decided we really need to make Etsy work. We really need to make an online presence work. So 2016, we started selling on Etsy, and I forced it to work. We really had to learn a lot, make a lot of mistakes, see ups and downs and all that. And shortly after that, making that click and making that do really well, I started Add to Cart on YouTube to coach others, because back then, at least, now there's a lot of YouTube content, but back then there was not a lot of YouTube content. I believe I was the second male on YouTube to talk about Etsy, period. And that was really, it feels good to share the information that could be skipped, like a learning curve that could be skipped, because my learning curve was really long and it was really painful. So I want to help other people skip that, because if the information is out there, then there's no reason for someone to suffer like that. So that's like me in a nutshell. And I came from the handmade background, and I am handmade at heart, but I do also print on demand, and I help a lot of print on demand sellers. The Etsy platform itself works the same way for all sellers. So it's a beautiful platform. I love Etsy because of the opportunity that's out there.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that origin story. I can't believe you did all of those things living in a van. I still got to try that.
Well, it was an RV. It was like a 29-foot Class A, but it was super old. We got it for $2,000 and fixed it up. And it wasn't technically van life, but it was an old beat up RV. And the frustration of van life definitely is the same, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, so now that you've been doing this for a long time, you've been coaching, like it says up here, for 6 years. Can you tell us, maybe give us some high level things that every Etsy shop owner or seller should know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot in my days. In the beginning, I started just doing hourly coaching and selling courses and stuff. But more recently, in the most recent years, I go into my student stores in my mentorship program, and I see a lot of things. And one of the most surprising things that I see is that some of the most successful stores, and I don't think you're going to hear this everywhere, but this is just my perspective. It could be a generalization. It's anecdotal. It's only from one person, right? But some of the most successful stores fall into their success. Meaning, I get into a store that has done 7 figures, 6 figures, etc., and I see so many mistakes. So what does that actually mean? Without dwelling upon that kind of surprising fact that a lot of people fall into their success on Etsy, what that tells me and tells us is that a lot of the time the product does a lot of the work. Meaning, if it's a really good product, the algorithm takes that and runs with it. And what does that tell us? That tells us another thing. That tells us that it's really important to grind and learn SEO, good photos, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the algorithm is going to respond to human interaction, and human interaction measured on Etsy and any other platform, even social media platforms, is measured in click-through rate, which is photos, and conversion rate, which is, comes down to how cool the product is, how unique the product is. And it's measured by human interaction. So that's one of the biggest surprising things that you said. I think you said top level. That's the most top level thing. Some of the biggest stores I've coached didn't know the basics of SEO and some of these other things that some people, when starting off, learn first, then go into things. So that's one of the biggest things nowadays, though, is that, it used to be back in like 2016, 17, 18, that if you picked a product, you just pick a product. And then you learn the other things, the logistical aspects, like SEO, tags, description, good stuff like that, then you're going to do good. Because back then, if you get it right, then you're going to sell. But nowadays, everybody knows SEO. Everybody knows how to take good photos, etc. So if you're in a sea of competitors and you don't know those things, but if you're in a sea of competitors and your product isn't as attractive and you're just giving everybody what everyone else has, then it's going to be a little bit tougher. So that was a really long way and a long-winded way to say pick a good product. Since we're on your channel, we're talking about print on demand. So it was a really long-winded way of saying make sure your designs are super awesome and that your niches are really, really good.
Nice. I'm glad you're confirming that, because I've been saying that as well. Like, design matters, right? Because when you put it up against other people, the only way for you to stand out, if all the products are the same or all the listings kind of look the same, you have to stand out somehow, and that's going to be with what's on your product, like the design or the saying or whatever it is. It needs to stand out.
Absolutely.
All right, we got some high level stuff. We know who you are. Can we get into kind of what we're talking about in this video? Is I think a lot of people are waiting for this one. 45K in 6 months. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why when we first talked about doing an interview, I thought it would be an interesting and fun thing to share this as a case study. This was a listing that did 45K. It's still climbing in a student store of mine. I created this listing for them on an existing product they already had. So I want to share some of these. It did 45K in under 6 months, and it's still growing. I wanted to share some of these important elements of this listing because everybody can learn from it and take what they will from it and apply it to their own store and apply it to their own way of thinking. So this product, number one, was a custom product. So with print on demand, we're on your channel, we're talking about print on demand. With print on demand, it's very easy to get into custom stuff. If we were talking about on my channel, like I did a video on this case study, and it was actually when the listing was only at 25K, but now it's at 46 specifically. So I had to talk about it in a handmade way or in a more broad Etsy type way. But for print on demand, it's easy to create a custom product. So custom is number one aspect. I'm sharing 3 elements to this listing. Custom being number one. There's a lot of personalized stuff out there. There's a lot of custom stuff out there. And honestly, it's not like everybody watching this didn't know that custom was a path to success on Etsy. But it is one of the elements, okay? So if you're print on demand and you're thinking about making a custom, or maybe you have a bunch of niches already in your store and you don't have any custom products yet, think about how you can add somebody's name to it, a coordinate. And it's not just about names either when it comes to print on demand. When you think about custom or personalized, you think about names only, but there are a million other things. For example, the custom coordinate maps, like where we met, those types of products. There's a whole lot of different things that you can do custom, okay? Even custom pictures on the shirt. Like, for example, the funny retro portraits. You know, my wife got me a shirt that has our dogs on it, and it looks like one of the throwback 90s shirts. And it does have their name on it. It is custom name, but there's a custom photo aspect to it. So when you think custom, it's not just name. So that's element number one. Number two is that the niche was a profession. The profession niches can do really well, especially if they're passionate professions and large professions. So it's essentially one of the biggest things I want to share by sharing all three of these things is that we're stacking up on these elements. You know, if your plan of attack to go on Etsy and is just, hey, I'm going to make some custom products. Okay, that's great, and you might do well, but we want to stack up all of these elements of success in this case study if it is applicable to your store, right? So number two, it's profession. It was a profession gift, custom profession gift. So we're putting the person's name on it. I'm not going to share the exact product, obviously, for the privacy of my student, but I want to share as much as possible to help everybody. So custom profession, it was the person's name. There was a little graphic specific to the profession. And then number three, this is a element to the listing that can't be replicated in the print-on-demand world. However, a big lesson can be taken out of it. All right. So number three was that there was some equipment involved. So you had to have some equipment in order to make this product, to specifically, you know, customize this product. Some equipment was involved. So what does that mean for us? That means that a barrier of entry was raised, right? There's a higher barrier of entry. What does this mean? It doesn't mean go out and buy some equipment or something like that. We're talking about print on demand. So what does this mean for us in print on demand? That means that if you can be on those trends and find print on demand suppliers that are pushing the limit with new types of products that are in demand and put new designs, even your existing designs on new products that are coming out from print-on-demand suppliers, then that is going to be giving you a huge leg up on competition, because for every popular product that a print-on-demand company releases, you have to keep in mind there's like a 1 to 3 year time period where people are catching on, and the early adopters to that product for print-on-demand have it much easier. And it's kind of like the same thing in terms of good keywords. You know, people ask me all the time whether they're using eRank or Marmalade or a different software for keyword research. Hey, the search volume's really high, the engagement's really high, but the competition is really high. And you don't need to be afraid of competition. Those high competition keywords are really good. Just like with print on demand, those high competition products are very good. That's where most of the money is being made. However, and furthermore from that, whenever there is a keyword and or product, we're kind of crossing over here, that is new, that is very in demand, very searched for, but not a lot of competition, it's not going to last very long. It's not like it's going to be low competition forever. In a year or 2 years from now, that product or that keyword is going to be high competition. So if you are considering it, adding it to your store or creating a new store based around only that product, then go for it, because the early adopters typically tend to do much better than, you know, everybody piling on after the fact years later. So those are the three elements to this listing. I created this listing in my student's store, and obviously the important lessons of selling on Etsy were applied as well. You know, I did good SEO, we did good tags, the photos were great, but that's run-of-the-mill stuff you can learn anywhere. I wanted to share these elements that will help print-on-demand sellers like on your channel learn from this and potentially apply some of these things to their products.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'm taking notes over here. Those three elements, I think we can use them a lot. I love the third one. That's kind of a twist that I think not a lot of people don't think about, being the early adopters and trying something different, so that, you know, that the barrier of entry that you mentioned, that not everybody can do this. So now you're kind of exclusive and kind of set yourself apart, which is really, really cool. So I think we've got to think about that as we do it. Anything else? So we talked about the three elements. We talked about some best practices in the beginning. Anything else that you want to share that maybe could help boost sales? I know you mentioned SEO. maybe ads or something like that. Can you tell us just a little bit more about what we could do to kind of even get a bigger boost?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not a specific thing that I want to tell, but it's more of a concept and a mindset that I want to relay to Etsy sellers, because Etsy is a different platform than Amazon and eBay. Its algorithm behaves differently. It's not like all of the developers and software developers all work on the same algorithm. Etsy is a newer platform compared to Amazon and eBay, sorry. And their algorithm has to be fine-tuned. You know, these companies have proprietary data that they are definitely not sharing with each other because they want to serve their customers better, right? So the information about finely tuning their algorithm in order to get customers the most satisfaction, meaning bringing them and showing them the best products for their search results, for their interest-based search results, which is a thing on Etsy. Search results shown to you based on your purchase history. Okay, it learns who you are. If you have a profile, it learns who you are, what you like to buy. So everybody's search results might look a little bit different. That's a little side note, and that's one of the main things I have to teach my students when we're going into their store, when they're asking me questions like, "Hey, I'm looking for my listing on, and I'm only seeing it on page 2 or page 3. But the biggest thing you want to pay attention to is not where your listing is landing. It's far bigger than that. However, sorry, I digress. The thing I want to tell everybody watching is that Etsy is almost like a social media platform. It is much different than Amazon and eBay in the sense that with Amazon and eBay, you can only have one listing representing one product. So it's essentially like an index, a library index of your products, and the algorithm does all the work to find the people that want to buy that based on your title and your tags and the data that it can gather from it and the data that you give it. However, Etsy listings and Etsy stores themselves have lifetimes, just as if posts do on social media. So each listing on Etsy has a lifetime, whether it's a bestseller or not. Two things erode your success inevitably. It's like the winds of time, and you can't ignore it, you can't escape it. It's competition moving on to the platform. That translates to thousands and millions, if not millions, of listings being added to the platform, and millions probably in your niche as well that your listing has to go up against in the algorithm. And number 2, time. Time is the ultimate erosion factor of Etsy stores, because one of the most common stores I help revive and coach is stores that the owners come to me, "Hey, Dave, I used to do really, really well. We used to do this much money. And for 5 years, we were doing so well, but now it's taken a dive." It's because of those two things that eroded their store. And those two things are competition moving on and time. Time is a huge factor. So listings have a lifetime, and you have to tend to the garden of your Etsy store. Plant seeds, weed out things that aren't working, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people think it's like Amazon and eBay where it's like set and forget in some sense. I know it's not like that, but people treat it as if it's set and forget. But the main concept I want to relay today is that Etsy listings and Etsy stores have a natural lifetime. And if you don't take care of them in the proper way, then it can mean trouble. No matter how much momentum you have, no matter how big of a giant you are on Etsy, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how the Etsy algorithm specifically works, then it will likely mean trouble in the end for you.
Awesome. Wow. I love that. I love the thing that you said, you got to tend to your garden on Etsy. I think that's true. Like, you can't just leave a garden growing. There's going to be weeds and things that come up. And so really cool. Cool. Thanks for sharing all of those things. One last thing before we go here. Is there any thing else that you want to share with people? Where can people find you? Those kinds of things. I have the YouTube down here, but if people want to learn more about you or find you, is that the best place, or are there other things that they can find from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you all the links to put in the description below. I offer free consultation calls for my mentorship program. I highly recommend people go through my six-figure seller course. It's Etsy specific, how the algorithm works, everything like that. All the links will be in the description, and I'll put my email there as well. And I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants help, that needs help, and wants to grow their store or save their store. That's a very common occurrence as well.
So cool, man. Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks for talking about Etsy, because I currently don't do Etsy right now. Now that I have more time, I may get back into it. But it's so nice to have somebody who's an expert like you to talk about Etsy, because I know a bunch of my followers probably have an Etsy store and they want to learn more about it. And I don't have that much content on it just because I'm not on there. But it's great to have experts like you come on and help my followers do those things if they want to do Etsy. So thank you again.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and you're welcome back anytime. And check out his channel. Of course, he has lots there, and I'll put all the links that you said in the description, and you can get to know Dave a lot better.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.